What is your superpower? I know I have one. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. This is my opportunity to introduce you to the woman that you see before you today. But I'm not always too sure exactly who she is. You see, I was the product of two very damaged teenagers that never should have had children in the first place. But from the outside looking in, they made everything appear just fine. Behind those closed doors was a totally different story. And I endured emotional, physical, mental, and sexual abuse throughout my childhood. All at the hands of the very people in charge of nurturing, loving, and providing guidance in order for me to become the person I was destined to be. And as a child, you know no different. But I developed some coping skills to help me survive. I'm going to call them my superpowers. One of which was the ability to hide. Like a chameleon, I would just blend in and nobody would ever even notice I was there. My other ability was to always become whatever anybody else needed me to be. You see, I had been programmed that I was no more than a possession and I had no value. And the only value I found and the only happiness I found was in making things better for other people, making their lives better. So I became an actress in the game of life, my own life. Now, my chameleon ability didn't work so well in the schoolyard. You see, when you have bright red hair and freckles, you stand out like a sore thumb. I was more like Rudolph in the North Pole. And the bullies were attracted. And I took a lot of abuse in the schoolyard. And with no voice and low self-esteem, I was the perfect victim. The depression hit me hard in my teenage years. And a school counselor started to read between the lines. And she realized I had a sickness within my family. And she convinced me that if I spoke the truth, we could make things better. And the people that were sick would get the help that they needed. So I spoke up and I told the truth. And I got cast in a new role. I was a villain. I was a liar, an acting out teenager, and just seeking attention. And my mother saw me as heartless and cruel. And what would the neighbors think? The shame I was bringing the whole family, and the hurt that I saw in my mother's eyes, and the hurt I saw in my brother's eyes. I knew I had to take this role that my father had given me and bury his demons down deep inside. And I did. In order to keep them down, I put my life into overdrive. I did everything at 110%, and I never slowed down. In 2012, I took on the role of human resource manager and public relations manager for a company. And with my superpowers, I fit in there perfectly. I was a natural. Within my 2-year term, I had 3 promotions and 4 raises in pay. Now, the office staff didn't like that very much. Were very, very jealous. And I could never imagine how adults could be more cruel than those schoolyard bullies. But I was wrong. And taking care of 200 employees in a toxic work environment took its toll. And I ended up in the emergency room, a complete mental breakdown. The doctor prescribed medication, and he prescribed stress leave, and he sent a note stating that I could no longer work in that environment unless the issues were addressed. The shame and the embarrassment I felt for my weak mental state. But 6 supervisors stepped up, and they signed off on a letter stating everything I had been through because they knew what I had been dealing with. And finally, we were going to step up and speak the truth and make things better for the whole company. The company was going to be stronger, a better work environment. The bosses didn't want anything to do with it, and I was cast as the villain again. They started a smear campaign in order to justify firing me 2 days into my stress leave. And it was full of gossip and rumors and half-truths, and it hurt right to the core. They even had a burn Charlene party when I decided to settle the lawsuit against them. My social anxiety was so high I could barely get out of bed, let alone leave my yard. In 2014, I was diagnosed with a form of PTSD. And I realized then this was a long time coming. And I knew I had to make some changes. My superpowers certainly weren't helping me anymore. And that shame and that burden that I had been carrying for other people was not mine to carry anymore. So I had to stop being this actress and just become myself, find out who I am, who I was destined to be. So my new superpower is me. I have a voice, I am speaking up, and I hope I can inspire others to realize if you've got a painful past, you can get past it and you can be a better person. You have to face it, and it is hard, but you can get there. Thank you.